I'm Tony Maher. I'm the National President of the Construction, Forestry, Mining and Energy Union, the CFMEU, and I represent Australia's tens of thousands of coal miners, and I want to put their view about the important issue of climate change. The view of coal miners and power station workers is often misrepresented as being one where people are denying the science of climate change. Our members thoroughly understand the importance of dealing with greenhouse gas emissions. We must, as a community, reduce the level of CO2 in the atmosphere, and our members have recently voted on a plebiscite to endorse 4 key principles. They are the ratification of the Kyoto Protocol by the Australian government and all governments, the increase in Australia of the mandatory renewable energy target, the introduction of a carbon trading scheme, and a massive increase in the funds made available by the private sector for low emission coal technology. Kyoto is important to coal miners because there needs to be a global solution to a global problem, and coal miners understand that. The Australian government has sat on its hands for 10 years. There has not been any international leadership. Yes, we need domestic solutions in Australia, but unless we have an international solution, then we will not address this problem. We say there should be a significant increase in the amount of renewable energy used in Australia and overseas. The energy market is growing at a rapid rate. Now, there should be something done about that demand management as well, but right now there is a much bigger role for renewables. It's a miserable 2% is the target set by the John Howard government. It should be much higher than that, and the government knows it. Unless there's a price put on carbon, then electrical generators won't make the investment in the low emission technology. And that has to happen because of the amount of coal-fired power in Australia and around the world. There's no skirting that issue. According to Sir Nicholas Stern, the author of the groundbreaking Stern Report, by 2050, 55% of the world's energy needs will still be from fossil fuels. So they have to be cleaned up. They have to be cleaned up by investment in low emission coal technology. And who's going to pay for that? Well, it has to be the mining companies. BHP, Rio Tinto, Xstrata make an absolute fortune out of coal mining in Australia and around the world. BHP recently announced an $8 billion profit for the half year this year. They spent a mere $10 million on clean coal technology. They spent more than $40 million on their board of directors. So there has to be a sense of proportion by these major companies, and it's in their own interests because they won't have a future and workers won't have a future and the world won't have energy unless they make that investment. The big mining companies are not taking this issue seriously enough. Our experience is that they don't move unless they're pushed very hard from a coalition of forces determined to achieve change. That's why we've bought $100,000 worth of shares in the 10 major mining companies, and we're prepared to head a coalition of mainstream environmental groups and others, community groups, that want to force mining companies to invest their massive wealth into solving the world's problem of climate change. They've got to be part of the solution, not just part of the problem. We've already met with environmental and community groups, and they're very interested in working with us on forcing some accountability from mining companies and to force them into being part of the solution and not the problem. Our union's been involved in the climate change debate since 1990. We were there at Rio at the Earth Summit, we were there at Kyoto, and we've always supported measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We've never been climate change sceptics like John Howard. Some groups have tried to rule out prematurely certain options. There's been the No New Mines campaign for the last 12 months, and recently the Australian Greens' Bob Brown has even suggested shutting down Australia's export coal industry. Of course, neither of these measures are effective in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. That's because Australia is only 3% of the world's coal production, and the other countries will just ratchet up production to compensate. So you have to judge them about whether or not they're effective. What they're really about is political opportunism. The real solution to climate change will be found by exploring all the options, not by ruling options out. And that's the approach that's been taken by prominent environmentalist Tim Flannery, by Al Gore in the movie The Inconvenient Truth, and by the author of the Stern Report, Sir Nicholas Stern. And we agree with them.